All right, all right, all right. It is Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and you have just tuned in for the Real Money Coach Show. Listen, we are going to have an absolute blast tonight. Listen, Kimberly McGuinn is already on top of it. She's putting into the chat where she's watching from. The rest of y'all, come on into the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. What city, what country, what state are you watching from tonight? Listen, I have two phenomenal guests, and if you saw my social media posts, if you got my email, you already know one of them is Dr. Emma Fraser-Pendleton, and we also have stopping in her brother that some people know. Well, a few people know. His name is Dr. George Fraser, my mentor. If you listened to the radio show, you know that Dr. Fraser and I had a wonderful time. And I tell people there's two people that you're probably going to know if you know me. You're going to know really two people for sure. And that is going to be my lovely wife, Elisa, for 31 years, going on 31 years. You're going to know her. And you're probably going to hear something about Dr. George Fraser because I quote him all the time. And sometimes I even give him credit when I do that. So you're going to know those two people for sure. And then, of course, my host that's usually here every single Tuesday is on vacation someplace in Florida somewhere. And so I will be riding solo today, but I got these two great guests on. Now, here's the thing. I want to talk a little bit about, and we might do a little discussion about this when the Frasers join us as well. So thank you, Kimberly, for being here. Dora, I hope I'm saying that right. Durham from Washington, D.C. We got Alice Martin from Charlotte, North Carolina. We got Renee from Connecticut is here. Listen, call your friends. You guys remember that commercial? Like, call your friends, call your mama, call all of them, and let them know that we are on the air with Dr. Fraser-Pendleton and Dr. Fraser. So it's going to be great. I do want to just talk real quick. Those of you kind of follow me on social media saw I made a post the other day about my Money Minute that I do on 105.3 R&B here in Charlotte, talking about Republic Bank going down. Of course, it is one of the largest banks since 2008, much larger than even SVB. Now, the thing about it is we just want to remind everyone of this. The fact is that there's been over 540 banks that have actually went into receivership, closed down, failed, however you want to label it, since 2008. It is a normal occurrence. It just happens to be that these have been some large banks and people are a little bit concerned. And I think a lot of it is because of social media, these type of things. And so what happened with Republic Bank is when their earnings report came out on April 24th, they had $100 billion withdrawn out of that bank in less than a week's time, right? And so that sent the bank into receivership. But JP Morgan bought all their assets, and it's probably going to come out of that deal looking pretty good because the Federal Reserve also gave them a $50 million line of credit to make sure that all the depositors and everyone's okay. So don't panic. Don't go run taking your money out the bank. If you got that much cash in the bank, number one, you should call me because you're not earning anything if you got that much money sitting in a bank account. You're earning pennies on a dollar. So you need to call me, make an appointment with me, iPad your money, iPadappointment.com. Now, the second thing is, if you're really concerned about it, take it. Thank you for being here, James. If brand new to the Real Money Coach family, James, thank you for being here. Great talking to you today. If you're really concerned, this is what you want to do. You want to just divide that up, into more than one institution, because you have, earnings up to, or deposits up to $250,000 insured by the FDIC. And I always remind people, what is FDIC? Federal Deposit what? Insurance. Need I say more? And one of the things that I learned from Dr. Fraser a couple weeks ago when we were in Baltimore, and I never thought about this, but he talked about how there's been a mortgage crisis, right? There's been a collapse in the mortgage market. There's been a collapse in the stock market. There's been a collapse in the banking, but there's never been a collapse in the insurance industry. I did the study where I looked at since 2008, 540, now 541 banks have failed. During that same time period, only 9 life insurance companies have went down. So you do the math, right? So we're going to talk about that and all sorts of things with our guest today. What I want to do is I want to just make a couple announcements to make sure that you are aware of them. And Dante, the engineer of the most, will pull those up, and I will talk about them as he pulls them up. MBN Millionaire Mindset Conference is coming up June 18th and 19th, and that's going to take place here in Charlotte, North Carolina, Concord to be exact, at the Hampton Inn and Suites. Also, Mr. Charles Chicken and Fish. Don't think it's just a greasy spoon though, because it's called Chicken and Fish. It's a really nice venue that's there in Concord. So Dr. Fraser is going to be keynote speaker, I believe, on Sunday evening. Michelle Walker Davis, Dr. Michelle Walker Davis, will also be a special speaker. I have talked to Stan Matthews. I will be doing something on stage as well. So you will see a lot more of that coming. But it's really about the mindset. It's about working with the mindset. I was on their meeting last night, and it was a phenomenal meeting. It's the first one that I had attended, and it was really, really good. So if you are in Charlotte or within a airplane ride to Charlotte, make sure that you be here. And then we're actually working on some other things with Dr. Fraser while he's in town. I'm glad we talked about this because Dr. Emma probably needs to know these dates, right? So that's coming up. And what do we got next? The other thing I wanted to mention here, Dante will pull that up for me as well. Which one we got next? We got the Generational Wealth Alliance. The Generational Wealth Alliance takes place every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific time with Janice, the Rainmaker Leak, Dr. George Fraser, and yours truly. And we're looking at, many of you have been asking me, when is my next masterclass going to happen? And my next masterclass is going to be on the book, Increase, Protect, and Dominate Your Money, 7-week masterclass. We are looking and talking, and we'll do that in combination with the Generational Wealth Alliance. So those of you who follow me, who want to come to my class, I think last time we had 200 people registered for the class. We want to add another 50 people to that. When you go to iPad Masterclass or TRMC Masterclass, it is going to, if everything goes the way it looks, it will take you directly to the Generational Wealth Alliance. You will register there and be part of that, and you'll get these pearls of wisdom from Janice, the Rainmaker, and also Dr. Fraser each and every Thursday. I think it'll be great to bring these two communities together to talk about wealth and all things money. And lastly, just want to remind everyone that every Saturday morning at 7:30 a.m. Eastern time, you can listen to me on Praise 100.9. That's on the air through Alexa, through the app. And then that show is also broadcast as a podcast on all of the channels, iHeart, YouTube, Google, Apple, Spotify, you name it, SoundCloud, it goes through all of them. And I have to share this one last story with you. I was tickled. I was amazed. You guys know I always talk about my grandson, right? My grandson, Cameron, right? Janelle, thank you for being here. Janelle, thank you for being on the show tonight. But my grandson, Cameron, you guys hear me talk about Cameron all the time. My oldest grandson, we have 4 grandkids. We have another grandchild on the way, which we will know if it's a boy or girl next weekend at my son's graduation from Howard University, by the way, with his dual masters. But my daughter called me and my wife. We were in the car on our date night, and she says, listen to this. And so my grandson, who's 7, has Alexa, and he asks Alexa, who's the real money coach? And Alexa told him his granddaddy, right? So that was pretty cool. I like when you made it through Alexa. I mean, hey, there you go. So that was pretty cool. Carlos, thank you for being here. Yes, HU, you know, I feel like I can say that because my son is graduating. So listen, I've been rambling on long enough. It is time to bring on one of our guests. Let's bring on my mentor, my man, my ride and die, Dr. George Fraser.
Hello there, young man. How are you?
I'm well. How are you today?
Good. Oh, yeah. They had the black tie on, giving me a standing ovation.
Giving you a standing ovation. Yeah, that's where you get that wherever you go, right? So Timothy Day from Durham, North Carolina, thank you for being here. By the way, folks, I will be in Durham on Saturday. We are doing a workshop at the Holiday Inn Express. Timothy Day, if you wouldn't mind, please put that information in the chat so that anyone who wants to register, come to the workshop on Saturday, they can do that. That will be in Durham, Raleigh area this Saturday. Kimberly McGinn says, happy belated birthday, Dr. Fraser.
Thank you. Yeah, I made it to 78. You know, my intention, as my sister's intention, is to live forever. And so far, so good.
Well, you got 78 years, man.
That's right. I got awesome. 78. I'm still kicking and kicking high.
Well, and still accomplishing so much. I mean, that's what's amazing to me, is to see how much you're doing. And as we were in the green room talking before, you know, about your travel schedule and how much do you travel a month now, Doc?
Well, I have totally over 40 years of travel, 10.5 million frequent flyer miles.
Wow.
I travel about 150, 180,000 miles a year. Just in April alone, I think April I put in about 35,000 miles. Just April, just a busy month, crisscrossing the country. But, you know, I'm not complaining. I love what I do. And the only way I can do what I'm doing is to, in fact, travel. Let me cut my phone off. You know, it comes on.
That's your ringer?
Right.
That's the ringer you can have when you're 78 years old, y'all.
That's right. See, I can dance to my telephone.
Yeah, ring, there you go.
And when it goes off in the in an airplane, people look at me and they nod their head. They want to get up and party. So anyway, life is good. It is just really wonderful to be with my sister on your show. No, I think it's a first for us, right? This is the first time we're together on your show. Is that right?
That is correct. That is correct.
It is. I don't see her enough. That's just like Emma.
I was reflecting the last time it was my wife and I, you and Dr. Emma, and we were at the Boyce Watkins Black in Gold banquet, I believe it was, and you received an honor there. I think that's the last time that we were together. We were all in the car together. And we just had a blast. We had a blast. My wife and I love being around the two of you, and just to sit here and listen to you two go at each other a little bit, and all the wisdom that you share. So,
well, it fits neatly into my little concept of the power of proximity, right? And that is surrounding yourself with people who make you better. And that's what gives us energy. That's when you have a blast. You're just around people of like mind. And so with Boyce being there and that was all, all that you could ask for. It was just an incredible event. And we just had a wonderful time. So just like we're going to have tonight.
Yeah, and what an amazing time, because for me, I mean, obviously Boyce Watkins has done a few different events for me and that type of thing, and you made that introduction, and so I had you there, Boyce Watkins there, Michael Roberts in the room, Dr. Emma in the room, as well as some other Jay Morrison, some other really heavy hitters.
Right.
And to be in that environment was so positive. Matter of fact, I got an email today about the All Black convention that will take place in October this year. Dr. Fraser, it will be in Atlanta. So perhaps there is some connection that could be made there with the project that you and I are working on.
Right.
That could be, we need to make mention that to Dr. Watkins. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But it will be
when will it be in Atlanta?
The end of October.
Okay, great.
End of October. I don't know the exact date, but it did say the end of October. As soon as I find out, I will let you know.
Okay.
And of course, you got a direct line to Dr. Boyce yourself. So
sure.
That'll be pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
So Dr. Fraser, what I would love for you to do is to take a moment or two and introduce our special guest tonight, our other special guest. You might know her a little bit, if you wouldn't mind doing that.
Absolutely. Can you put her on the screen? I want to look at her face. Maybe the three of us. Is it possible to do three people?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, there she goes. There she is. Miss America. How you doing, sis?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, you look great. All right. You absolutely don't look your age. And, right. And we, black don't crack and, all that other kind of stuff. But listen, Emma is actually the only person living who has been with me since birth. Right. Now, we do have an older sister who's sort of a half sister, Myra, who lives here in Cleveland. And she's in, I think, 91 or 92. But Emma, we have been together our entire lives through orphanages, through foster care, through hills and valleys, and through the good times, through the bad times. And one thing I can't say, through marriages, right? Emma was married once, and she is a widow. And not married for a long, long time. I've been only married once. This is now our 50th year, Nora Jean and I. So Emma has been with me through every serious transition in my entire life. I have great love and great admiration. And believe it or not, she's just a year older than me, but it may sound strange to say that not only is she my sister, but believe it or not, she was a mentor to me for many, many years. Because I said we've been through orphanages together and through foster care. I happened to age out of foster care. She got the hell out of there as soon as she could. I don't blame her. But she's also, like me, very, very humble beginnings. No one thought she was college material, so she went to Woodrow Wilson High School and got a vocational diploma in beauty care or doing hair or cosmetology, I guess is what you call it. And I got a vocational diploma in carpentry and cabinet making, and then the rest is history. She has I think it's at least 5 degrees, topped off with whipped cream and a cherry on top, with a Harvard graduate degree. She's a brilliant thinker. She's also, this may sound like a strange word to use with Emma, but I know her well enough to say that she's also a brilliant humorist. She's a humorist, not a comedian, just a humorist. She can find something funny, odd about almost anything, which means that she's capable of saying anything at any time. You just never know what will come out of that incredible mind. She has two beautiful sons, and lives, in your backyard in Charlotte, North Carolina. She spent the majority of her life in New York City, after Brooklyn, and then foster care, and then she settled in Queens, and met her husband, and and then ultimately moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. I tried to get her to come to Cleveland. I talked to her for years about that, and she said there was only one reason that she would not come to Cleveland. She absolutely loved Cleveland. She loved the winters. She loved the seasons. She said there's only one reason, George, I would not ever come to Cleveland, and it's because you're there. And Zoom calls is about as close as I want to be with you, and an occasional live appearance. Maybe in Cleveland once a year, and you can come to Charlotte. Please limit it to a day or two. I'm just kidding. So I can say that about my sister because she laughs, and she laughs at the right time, in the right moment. She makes you laugh in the right times, in the right moments. But she can also sandwich that with incredible insight, incredible intelligence, and wisdom. And when you reach our phase and stage and passage of life, you better have some wisdom, or you're probably dead. It takes wisdom and experience to dodge the bullets that we certainly as Black people have to dodge. And yes, we are Black. Both of us are Black. We're now light Black. Okay, but we're not talking about color here. We're talking about culture. That's really what we say.
Right.
Black. We're talking really about culture because, as I say all the time, we come in all shapes, sizes, skin tones, and hair textures. Lots of options. So, without further ado, I don't want to take too much of her time. I know she has. There's something she wants to talk to us about that is special, and I did know the name, but I don't want to give away. I don't want to give away the hook. I'll let her give away the hook. It's a wonderful hook title. And so, again, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, kings and queens, Reverend Dr. Emma Fraser-Pendleton.
Woo, woo. Welcome to the show. I have been wanting to get Dr. Emma on my show for the longest. And let me tell you something, how this came about is she texts me, and she texts me, we're going to actually show you what she texts me. She texts me this little, you're talking about being humorous, right? She texts me this little thing, this little video. And I immediately text her back and said, come on the show. And she said, sure, yes. And it just kind of worked out. And so, Dr. Emma, thank you so much for being here. I have to admit, you said something when I believe we were in the car. And you said, this is how you, oh, no, maybe it was on the Generational Wealth Alliance when you were on. But you said to find, your advice to the sisters was to get a man who kept on giving even when he's not living. And I was like,
that's right.
That could be
yeah. And that probably came right off the top of her head. That's powerful. That's deep.
That is powerful. That is powerful. I mean, and there's so much. I mean, you could just run away. I mean, that'll preach, right? So that is so good. So, Dr. Emma.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Emma said to me the other day, we were talking on the phone. She says, you know what? I would kill for a Nobel Peace Prize. You got to think about that.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Your turn.
There's some people who have been.
There's some people who have to think about that.
They got to think about that one.
But George, you should have prefaced it and said, as a widow, my sister said she was looking for a Nobel Peace Prize.
So, Dr. Emma, how are you?
doing really great. I had a birthday. And I just, since you put that comment out about what I said, so young women often ask me, what should I look for in a man, Dr. P? And most of them are church women. And I know they're expecting me to say he should be deeply spiritual, and all of that comes later. But I said, you should look for a man that can keep on giving even after he's not living. They said, what? I said, honey, a real man, when he closes his eyes, you still can live in your house. You can still buy food. You still have financial security because he planned it. I know men, and I've heard them say, I'm not leaving my spouse or wife anything because they're not going to spend their money, not spend my money on another man. But a real man, a man that understands his place, understands that financial planning for either spouse, because I survived my spouse, but I planned that if I should go before him, he wouldn't miss a beat, and he planned the same thing for me. I want to quote Emmerich Peace. I called him when my husband died, and I said, I want to move. I think I want to move to Maryland. But I don't know what to do. Should I sell this piece of property? It's such a problem. I don't know what to do. He said to me, Emma, you know how many women call me? They got to sell their house because they can't keep it. The spouse left or the spouse died, and their whole financial fidelity in the world is gone. So it's an equal opportunity advantage in a marriage. A wife should make sure that when she goes, that man can make it the same way as when she was alive, and vice versa. And vice versa.
Absolutely. You know, in my 25 years of doing this, you know, I've heard all kinds of excuses like that. Like, I don't want to make anyone rich. I don't want my wife to get another man. I was like, well, if you don't properly plan, she's not going to have a choice.
Exactly.
She's going to have to get another man, right? And I jokingly have said that, you know, I should have enough life insurance that if something happens to me, my wife does not have to get another man, that she doesn't have to move. She doesn't have to do these things. And it's so important. One of my favorite lines out of the Black Panther is when he was there and he's talking to his father, and his father said to him that a man who does not prepare his children or his family for his death has failed as a father.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you don't prepare for death, that means you didn't prepare in life.
Right.
So the attitude that doesn't permit you or stops you from leaving an inheritance for your spouse and for your children's children affects that marriage long before the eyes are closed. Because if you didn't prepare for that, what other things did you not prepare for? You're not just a wonderful provider when you're alive, and then suddenly when you die, you don't want to leave anybody anything. So that kind of thinking makes you back up and say, what else is going on financially? Do they even know what I know people who have no idea what their spouse makes.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
They have no idea, and they split the bills. You pay this and I pay that. And they have no idea the equity that each one has.
Right.
That makes no sense to me.
And then when one passes on, the other person doesn't know. I mean, I've seen situations where they don't even know how to write a checkbook. They don't know how to they don't know what the bank accounts are, you know, all these types of things. And it's so important that communication is vital. I do this thing called Disc and Dollars, where we take a person's disc profile and then we break that down into how they relate to money based on that disc profile. And that's when you do that with a couple, and you got to figure out how to take a person who's high I, that likes to spend and do whatever, and now they're married to someone who's a high C that is watching every penny, and how do you merge that together to make that relationship work? Because we know that money is one of the leading causes of divorce.
One of the top three.
And I don't think it's money. I think it's the lack of money.
Yes, it can be the lack of resources, but it's mainly the lack of communication. Because I know when I got married young. We didn't have the old-fashioned expression. We didn't have a pot to pee in or a window to throw it out of. But we knew we weren't going to stay that way. Mm-hmm. So that young marriage, we didn't bring anything to the marriage but ourselves, but we had communication. And sometimes I was smarter at something, and sometimes my husband was. But if we were operating in a completely different genre than each other, then the best doesn't get to surface, only the minimum.
Right. Very, very good. Very good. And you know, your idea of retirement may be, you know, the Hilton or the Four Seasons, and their idea of retirement is a camper in the woods. You know, you gotta get these things matched up. So pretty awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about, I mean, you mentioned this, and I love, you know, we all have this mutual friend in Donna Reed, who's very into foster care and those initiatives. I myself was given up for adoption, so I was adopted myself. So tell us a little bit. I was very blessed, though. I was blessed that I wasn't expected to live, right? So as a child, and so the foster home that I went to, she took in children that had been given up for adoption that were sickly. And so my foster mother actually ended up being my grandmother, because my mother, her daughter, and my dad adopted me. So I never really was in this. On paper, I was in the system, but not in reality, if that makes sense. So tell us a little bit about, and I know you guys have the book together. Tell us a little bit about what your upbringing was like.
It was extremely difficult, because we wound up in 3 foster homes. It was extremely difficult, very abusive, very stressful as children to survive that. So I have to insert this. I'm fire when it comes to that experience, and George is ice, let me tell you. Okay. George responds to the same level of abuse that we receive, because our foster brother was an equal opportunity abuser. So we all had the same thing on the same plate. George's DNA and his personality, he just took it. He never argued. He never fought. He never railed against that dark night and that dark experience. My younger brother Joseph and I were always fighting. We're going to kill him, and we're going to fight back and argue. But what George was doing while we were fighting, he was finding a way to make money. We were his first employees. He went out on that. I'm serious, Tony. We're going back to 1896. George hired Joseph and I to do his chores. One, because if our chores weren't done, you didn't go out, you didn't eat, you didn't sleep, you just got tortured. So he figured out, how can I get my job done and go out and make enough money to cover my employees' wages, satisfy my monster, because I didn't call her foster mother later on. To me, she was foster monster. So he figured out the interpersonal. He paid us, I think it was like 50 cents a day, which was a lot of money. You could get a Cadillac for 50 cents a day in those days. And he went out and started, you're not going to believe this, he started a house cleaning business. He first started out snow. He'd get up early in the morning. He'd be the first kid on the block to shovel snow. And then he had regular customers. I'm talking about somebody 9 or 10 years old. Wow. He had a shovel, and our foster mother didn't give him a shovel. She did not. What she shoveled at us, I can't say on this call.
Mm.
So he bought his first own shovel, and he would be out there early in the morning, school Saturday, Sunday. He would be out there, and he paid Joseph and I. So we figured in our little minds, we'll do an okay job. He came home and checked it. If the job wasn't done well, we didn't get paid. We didn't get paid. We didn't get paid.
The child entrepreneur.
He really was. He got working papers. Now I'm a year older than him. He got working papers, and the rest of us didn't even know what that was. To this day, I don't know how he got it, who took them. And then he wound up getting a job in a store, which was unheard of for Black kids at that time. But I think he was passing at that time. That's what I think. I think he was, and I don't want to hold it. But seriously, so 150 years later, George is the man, the network guru. They say he's the Black network guru, but George is an equal opportunity. He can network with the Black, the white, the dead, and the living. So I start going. I told you on the call before. I start going to the Power Networking Conference real strong after my husband died. So he gave me some little workshops to do in the back, and then eventually I got the big stage. So I was very happy about that. So a couple of years later, I said, George, I want to ask you a question. Did you do that because I'm your sister? You know what he said? Because if you weren't good, you would mess up my stage. The same attitude he had as a kid, and he didn't say it mean, but I needed to know that. But if I go back to when he was a kid, he paid us if we did the job. If we didn't do the job, we didn't get the money. You don't get on George's stage because you're a relative. However, proximity. I was in a place to ask, and I'm his sister. But I wouldn't have gotten that stage because he would have politely said, get your act together, practice more, know your stuff, all the tips he tells you. So my foster child experience that I shared with George made us what we are today. They were abusive. They were violent. We really suffered. And George and I have had this conversation, and I think he was the first to say it. He said, Emma, look at what we learned. We can clean. We know how to save money because we never had any. And if we got it, we stretched it. We know how to make something out of nothing. We were the first modern day Hebrew slaves because everything was done in that house. We did it. We were severely punished if it wasn't done well.
Yeah.
So George always says, even though they were horrible to us, look at our life and look what we can do, Emma. Look what we can do because of that. So I came out with a phrase many years ago, and it says like this. When you put your faith in God, regardless of the circumstances, that faith will turn your scars into stars, your tragedy into triumph, and your mess into your ministry. Because he works all things together good for those that love him, that are called according to his purpose.
Yeah.
And I think
that's beautifully stated. Let me add a little to that. And I've thought about this for years, and Emma and I've had hours of conversation about this. It was hell, no question about that. But it taught us really the two. Now remember, there are 11 of us, right? There are 8 boys and 3 girls. We had 3 other brothers by the same mother and father. My mother had children with other men that she was married to, but there were 6 of us that had the same mother and father, generally speaking. And when my mother was institutionalized, she was mentally ill, paranoia, schizophrenia, and she was institutionalized for the rest of her life. My father was a cab driver; he couldn't take care of everybody, so we were orphaned and put into foster care. And then Emma and myself and my younger brother Joseph, we were together, and foster parents took us, and then another set of foster parents took my older brothers. All right, and they had, if there was an ideal home, a sort of a black version of Ozzie and Harriet, right,
Hmm.
in Queens, those are the kinds of foster parents that they had, right? We were in we were with Dante and in the Inferno, uh, but as it turns out, right,
Tell it, George.
every every problem has a purpose, but you will never
Yeah.
understand the purpose looking forward. You'll only understand it looking backwards. That inferno that we had to navigate and negotiate gave us discipline,
Mm.
discipline, and work ethic, right? And understanding that cleanliness was next to godliness, right?
Right.
So three cornerstone and cornerstone ideas that have to be internalized if you're going to succeed. So if you look back at Emma and our younger brother Joseph, he was killed in a drug deal that went bad. Uh,
42 years old.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
exactly, in Brooklyn.
Real young.
But so if so we Emma and I, and you look at all of our siblings, have absolutely done the best of all of them. What did we have in common? We grew up in the same hell, with the
Mm.
same disciplines, with the same work ethic. And so I preach that gospel. The discipline will solve 80% of your problems. 80, not 100%, but 80% of your problems. And one of the cornerstones of discipline is work ethic. One of the
Okay.
cornerstones of discipline was knowledge. We were not really allowed to watch television. We had to read and study and those kinds of, because they were disciplinarians. And one of the cornerstones is risk. So when we look back now, it made us, essentially, it provided the cornerstones of who we ended up being. But it wasn't simple. And there's a beautiful piece. Life is not simple. It
Mm.
isn't. And I say often when I speak, we must stop our simple ways. And Proverbs 1:22 says, "How long will you who are simple love your simple ways?" Then Proverbs 1:32 says, "For the waywardness of the simple will kill them,
Mhm.
and the complacency of fools will destroy them." And then Proverbs 1:28, "Then they will come to me." This is God speaking. "Then they will come to me,
Mhm.
but I will not answer. They will look for me, but they will not find me, since they have hated knowledge." So this is not easy to understand or to deal with. It's complex. It's not common or ordinary, but it turned out for Emma and I to be really a very odd gift. And Emma has succeeded at the highest educational level. She was director of curriculum and then assistant superintendent of schools in New York, and has won all kinds of awards and recognition. And me the same. Well, what are the things that we have in common? Some of it, of course, is DNA,
Yes.
which is a
Sure.
tad odder than our siblings. Um, but much of it is the experiences that we had to endure and negotiate and navigate through from the very earliest stages of our lives that really imprinted, ultimately, who we ultimately would become. That's the best way that I can internalize it and look at it as
Well,
something helping rather than hurting.
Well, I think it's simply amazing, and one of the things, and Georgia can't wait, Dr. Fraser. Sometimes I get so comfortable, I say George,
That's
but Dr. G, one of the things is your autobiography, and you shared some of that, with a little bit of that reading. I think that's going to be amazing. But Dr. Emma had asked me earlier when we did a run for the show. She's like, what do you want? What do you want your audience to walk away from? What are we going to talk about? And I said, organically, I like the show to be organic, let the spirit lead. But I said, the one thing I wanted the audience to walk away with is being inspired. And when we listen to your story, it is not a story, it's the truth, right? When we listen to your history and what the two of you have overcome to accomplish everything that you have, that's just pure inspiration. And I just sit here at awe with it because of that those circumstances would have broke a lot of people and have broke a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
And so, but Dr. Emma, I do want you to share a little bit, because you were talking a little bit about the psychological part and some of the things that you've brought to PNC in terms of mindset,
Yes.
Emotional health, emotional intelligence. We were talking a little bit about even how the body remembers. Share a little bit about what you did or this weekend with your church, or wherever you want to go with that.
So I've been studying the brain and the body and our response to trauma and drama, because I experience so much and I have triggers, because the brain is the model that man used, whether he knows it or not, to build a computer. This is the most fantastic machine in the world. It always has enough gigabytes. It always can retrieve the information, because nothing is ever lost in the brain unless disease attacks it. So the idea that we can overcome, and so I was interested in trauma because it affected me different from George. And I say this about George and I. George's emotional base is like Velcro. Mine is like Velcro. His is like silicone. He's always had the capacity just to it slides off of him. That's something in his personality. Mine is Velcro. The stuff sticks. So I had to do a different kind of work. So in studying trauma and drama, I was doing an article for a book. And I said, God, but I've overcome it. Do I just say, well, I overcame it through fasting and prayer? That's one way of putting it. But the article that I wrote and what I taught this Saturday in my church was that the body keeps the score. Whatever you go through, you may leave the event, but the memory goes with you in your brain. And the triggers and the response from the body responds differently in all of us, but it does respond. So when I wrote this article, which sums it up for me, it was titled The Trauma, the Drama, and the Comma. And the comma is the turning point in all of our lives, when your situation and your circumstances propel you and not stop you. And George and I, one of our favorite books is The Obstacle is the Way. Whatever tragedy or whatever hardship is in your life, that is what will propel you when you see it as an opportunity as opposed to an obstacle. And if you see it as a triumph to get to the next level, and this is going to make me, this is going to give me resilience, you can make it over anything. And the comma for me was God's intervention. He kept me strong. He kept George strong. He kept us with a mind that acknowledged that he existed. And for me, as an ordained minister, I know that he was with me in a special way as a child because I didn't just find him when I was 17. I found him in the hellholes of that experience. We would take a licking, go to my room, and I would talk to God. I would just talk to God. I would. You got to help me. You got to do. So it was instilled in me. So our victimization becomes our victory if you take it and hurl it forward and don't let it hold you backward.
Wow, that's a great word. That is a great that right there we can shout about. Right there. That is awesome. So I we are already,
Yes.
I think when we talked about this earlier and I said, well, we
Mhm.
go to 9, you're like, wow, that's an hour. But it's already been
Right.
55 minutes, right?
Oh my
And
God.
so it's pretty amazing.
Let
Go
me
ahead.
say one little quick thing, because I know we're 5 minutes from closing time.
Mhm.
But one quick thing, I love what Emma said. I just want to say it a little bit differently. And it is my sincere belief, and it is proven to be true, that God has removed you from a table where you used to sit in order to save you from a host who is serving you poison.
Woo! There you
Mm,
go.
Okay. This is what God will do. You just have to be patient, and you have to navigate the obstacles, because that's where the lessons are. And as you've heard me say many times, my favorite quote outside of the Bible is Marcus Aurelius. And it was Emma who sent me the book, The Obstacle is the Way. But Marcus Aurelius said it profoundly 600 years before Christ. And Marcus Aurelius said that the impediment to action advances the action. What stands in your way becomes the way. If a mountain was smooth, you couldn't climb it. This is where we learn our lessons. This is failing, stumbling, falling, and learning the lessons of life. This is how we learn. So both Emma and I eat obstacles for vitamins.
love
Just
it.
tell me no, and I'm really energized then.
And I would like George to perhaps, you wanted to know something about money. So I sort of talked about it a little bit. But the way we learned to manage money was as children because
Mm,
the foster agency gave us an allowance and our foster mother would never give it to us. Would
mm,
never, it meant all the difference to us. It would have, it was like 15 or 20 cents, but she never gave it to us. But I figured a way how to get it. I went to her, I said, Mother, I know it's a lot of problems trying to figure out the allowance that we're due for the three of us. Why don't you hold on to it all year and give it to us at Christmas so we could go Christmas shopping? And that's what she did. And the first gift we bought, George, do you remember? She had a favorite perfume by Revlon called Intimate. We got like $13, $14. That was our allowance for the whole year. The first gift we bought was for her because we
mm.
figured out if you don't know how to smooth the mountain of your adversary, you will always be subject to their discipline and critic and violence in your life. And
Mhm.
that's what we did. And when we got money from our father, we budgeted it. We never had a lot, but we did a lot with what we had.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, and you know what? And I see some of these principles even in my interaction with Dr. Fraser. Like, I mean, Dr. Fraser is not one who likes conflict.
Nope.
I've had him say it. I've heard him say it. I've seen him do it. That I will love you and release you. Right? I
I
mean,
live with that fear every day.
yeah. Yeah, so
Right.
that's how he does. I mean, and so I see some of these things that you're talking about, how it shaped who he is and the things that he share, and those of us who call him our mentor, and that he mentors and that type of thing. And so, what a wonderful gift to the world that you two have been. And so, and I am fortunate, unlike a lot of men, I'm fortunate to have had very strong men in my life. My dad who adopted me, my uncle who I'm very close to, my father on my wife's side. I didn't say father-in-law. I mean, we were like this. My pastor, and so I've been very fortunate to be around very strong men who have been great examples.
Yeah.
And Dr. Fraser is one of those men I consider. And Dr. Emma, you are always a pleasure to be around. There's always nuggets that are coming out of your mouth. So I really appreciate both of you, and I appreciate the direction that this went tonight. I mean, I had no idea where this would go, but God took it to this direction that it went. And as Charles Rainey said, appreciating your openness, your insight, and your transparency, because people look at Dr. Emma, Harvard educated, Dr. Fraser, Mr. Network. Your network is your net worth. And I mean, when you think about George, he's a wealthy guy, right? Because of that. But they look at you and they see that it's kind of like we say, you see the glory, but you don't know the story. And you've shared that story.
You don't look like what we've
You
been
don't look like what you've been through. You better say it. You don't look like what you've been through.
Right.
And what a testament for us that are, and other people who are watching that are going through things. You don't have to wear that on you. It's your circumstances. It's not you.
Right.
So last words.
Don't forget the Power Networking Conference, August the 2nd through the 5th in Houston, Texas, our 22nd year, starring Tony Jackson, Dr. Emma Fraser-Pendleton, Dr. George Fraser, Tavis Smiley, and a whole host of other folks. So you can just go to www.powernetworkingconference.com, www.powernetworkingconference.com.
Life-changing. Life-changing.
George, may I say something? May I say something?
Sure.
The Power Networking Conference is the largest therapeutic place that Black people can go, and for 3 days go through a psychological and an emotional restoration, because we're in the room with ourselves. You see successful Black people. You see people who want to do something with their lives. And the karma in the room is spread like peanut butter on hot toast. So it's an emotional, a psychological, a spiritual, and a financial experience. And we need that.
I'll tell you, the first one I went to, I was absolutely blown away. I was blown away to be in a conference with that many like-minded brothers and sisters. And I'm so very honored and blessed to have been a part of it. I haven't missed since that first time I went. Yeah. I haven't missed, and it's just a wonderful conference, and we'll make sure that we get that posted inside of our Facebook group, the link. Those of you who are in Charlotte and around, you come out and see Dr. Fraser on the 18th and 19th at the conference, and certainly make your way to Houston for. Now, the other thing I want to say is the wisdom that you're getting tonight, we get every Thursday at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. on the Generational Wealth Alliance.net. GenerationalWealthAlliance.net. So, any last words, Dr. Fraser, before we sign off?
No, I'm going to give the last word to my sister, because that's really the story of my life. That she has been the last word in almost every important sector of my life. So I'm going to defer to her and just remind people that if everything seems to be going well, you have obviously overlooked something.
I would say it like this: you're either approaching a problem, you're
Right.
in a problem, or coming out of a
There you
problem.
go. That's another way to say the same thing.
Well, George, I'm going to quote you.
Right.
George, once we were having conversation, said, "You know what our purpose is, sis?" And I went into this long monologue. He said, "No, we were put here to solve problems, not to be one."
Boom. I would drop this, but that's a mic dropping moment. I would drop this, but then I'd have to replace it. So, and that doesn't make good financial sense. Right?
I love your effects, man. Your effects are great. That's great. That's great stuff, man.
Well, listen, folks, you have, it's been a treat. It's been a treat. Everyone watching, I know you've been a treat. Tell your family, your friends, go to the Real Money Coach YouTube live and you can rewatch this. Certainly it's going to be on Facebook and those type of things. So just thank you for being here. Make sure you tune in next week. And thank you very much for being here. Everybody have a good night.
Good night, Tony. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Good
night, everybody.
Good
Love
night.
you.
Mhm.